Today we're going to be talking about every team's best pick in the 2022 NFL Draft and why the Giants are poised to win the Super Bowl this year. Okay, that last part's a lie, but we really are going to talk about every team's best pick, and maybe I'll even throw two in for the Giants. So what makes a team's pick the best? Well, I'm factoring in a number of different things like the quality of the player, the quality of the pick in terms of where that player was on the board, whether it was a steal. So we're factoring in the round, we're factoring in the player, all those kind of multiplied together to create what is their best pick in my mind. Immediate impact is also in play as well. And I'll try to use as much footage of this guy as I can for each team. I also do not want to be copyright claimed because then all my work goes to nothing. For the Cardinals, I'm going to go with Cameron Thomas, number 87 overall. And I thought they made a couple of good picks. This was almost Marquise Hayes in the 7th. But I'm a big fan of this player, and I think getting to play in the same defensive line and learning from J.J. Watt, I think he's going to be in a really good position. Not that they're exactly similar players in terms of skill and upside, but Thomas is an inside-outside type defensive lineman that can play, I think, anywhere from the 3-tech and clear pass rush downs to be a starting 5-tech on an NFL defense and even be a true edge at times as well. I think he's a really good player, and he kind of is in that similar mold of a player they took not too long ago in Zach Allen, and I really like that pick as well, and he hasn't really found it, so I don't know if I'm making that same mistake yet, but I'm going with Cameron Thomas. I think he's a really good player who's just going to be good and offers a defensive line versatility to move in and out of different looks. The Atlanta Falcons. Man, this is another tough team to say who their best pick was, but I think we're going to go with a value play here, and that's going to be Desmond Ridder at number 74. Now, yes, it was a weaker quarterback class, but there's still no reason Desmond Ridder should have been available at number 74 overall in the draft. I talked about this team in depth in my entire draft grades video. That's on the channel. You can skip to your team. I would prefer if you didn't, but you're going to do it anyway, so I might as well give you permission. But yeah, I liked a lot of their draft, but I think Desmond Ridder is their best pick. He is a really quality player that reads the field really well in terms of both pre and post snap processing. Probably was one of the better quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback in the draft. Also, great upside because he has great athleticism. My only real concern with him was his general accuracy and ball placement, and that left a lot to be desired at times. But if you can clean that up, he's got all the traits to be a starting caliber quarterback, and to get that at number 74 in the draft, I think the value is immeasurable. For the Baltimore Ravens, it's almost hard to even pick because they made so many great picks, and I loved a lot of them. But the guy I'm going to end up settling on is David Ojabo from Michigan. He would have been a first-round pick if not for injury, and he's going to a perfect situation. Same defensive coordinator as last season in Michigan is also now his defensive coordinator with the Baltimore Ravens. Obviously, there's connection with the Harbaughs, his coach Jim at Michigan. His brother John is now his head coach in the NFL, so there's some fun storylines along with it. But bottom line with the player is that he's an incredible athlete with great length at the position, great burst off the line, and someone that's still developing as a pass rusher, but has so much juice off the edge and is flashed already as a rusher. I think he's going to end up being a real contributor for this Ravens defense for years to come, and teaming up with his high school teammate Adafe Owe on opposite edge, like that's a great storyline, but it's also a great player, and he really never would have made it even close to this pick at number 13 in the second round if not for being injured. So the Ravens are taking a chance on a player that we know is going to be really good, at least in terms of projection and where he would have been earlier in the draft if not for injury, and they just stole him here in the middle of the second round. The Buffalo Bills had a draft where they just kind of took the right player for them. They didn't really care about best player available on a consensus board, and they just operated on taking the best player that fit them the best. And for me, that best pick is going to be James Cook, the running back out of Georgia. He is a great receiving back, and that's the role he's going to fill for the Bills. Now, via his prospect grade here, he is a good backup with the potential to develop into a starter. I don't ever think he's going to be a true starting running back. I think he's going to be more of a running back by committee, and I think he's going to be a third down back. He's a great receiver out of the backfield. I think they're probably even going to get him more classic receiver reps. It wouldn't shock me to see him taking snaps from the slot every so often, but he's really, really quick and shifty with great route running and hands for a running back. The Bills needed a receiving back, and James Cook here at the back end of the second round, I think he's a really good pick for them. The Carolina Panthers didn't really have a lot of top picks in this draft. They picked at number 6 overall and then not again until the 4th. Now that 4th did end up turning into a 3rd when they went down and they got Matt Corral, and that is nearly the best pick of the draft, but unfortunately for Matt Corral, I'm going with Ike Ekwonu. He was one of the best players in the entire draft, has flexibility at both guard, which you've seen him play to a high level at NC State, and tackle, which last year we saw him play at a high level, also, of course, at NC State. He was arguably the best player in this draft. I think he could have been anywhere in that 1 to 5 range, and he probably should not have been there at 6. Plays an incredibly valuable position, is a really, really good athlete, high character guy, a lot of upside here, and fills a huge need for the Panthers. I want to say it to Corral because his upside's also pretty big as well, and they got him so deep into the draft. But I think just sticking at number 6 and landing your biggest need in this great player in Ike Ekwonu, it's great value at 6. And, you know, we're going to show some love to some of the top picks as well in here too, and Ike Ekwonu is one of them. The Chicago Bears, I said this in my video about them in the draft grades, I really think they needed to do more to build around their young quarterback just because that's so important. So I probably would have approached the draft in a little bit of a different way. But General Manager Ryan Poles says, you know what, while we appreciate that, we still need to build up the rest of the team and try to be a competitor as well. So while I feel like you're not doing Justin Fields and his development any favors, I think you did make some moves to make this team better. And for me, the best pick they made was Jaquan Brisker. I thought he was really, really good value where they got him. Middle of the 2nd round, and he will be a starter probably right away for the Chicago Bears team. Great athlete, kind of like the captain of the defense for Penn State, high effort player. And for him to be available in the middle of the 2nd round, I think it's good value. But for the Bears to get a plug and play instant starter, I think this is a home run pick for Chicago. And this is a really, really good move for them in their future. Brisker is a good player, and the Bears got better in this draft. The Cincinnati Bengals kind of overperformed, made it to the Super Bowl in 2021, and they're still in the process of rebuilding. And they went out and they rebuilt their offensive line, and they still had some holes in the secondary, and they plugged them, I think. And their best pick for me was Daxton Hill at number 31 overall. I viewed him much higher than that. I thought he was one of the better players in the entire draft with flexibility both as a free safety, as a nickel corner. And you know what? With his size and feet and agility and ability, I think Dax Hill could even be a boundary corner. So when you consider the fact that Eli Apple probably not going to be on the team in 2023, which is a year from now, and you factor in that their secondary is not super strong to begin with, outside of Jesse Bates, Chidobe Awuzie is pretty good, but you need depth in a secondary. I mean, the Bucs showed that when they had some injuries. They were literally throwing out practice squad players and guys that were signed off the street like Richard Sherman. And the Bengals got a player at 31 that can do a number of things for you. I think, maybe boundary corner is something that they might try out just because I think the player is good enough to be able to do that. I think you get an absolute plus slot corner. And if you can't re-sign Jesse Bates long term, guess what? You got your starting free safety of the future. This player, Dax Hill, can really do all of those things, in my opinion, and do so at a high level. I love the player. I love the pick. I love the fit. I don't think he should have been available near 31, but the league doesn't really value safeties that highly. But I do value Dax Hill at a very high level. I think he's awesome. I think this is a great pick for the Bengals. The Cleveland Browns were another team that did not have a lot in the way of top picks. And when you have so many teams picking in the first round that have multiple first-round picks, surely some teams will not. And because of the Deshaun Watson trade, the Browns didn't have a first-round pick. They didn't have a second-round pick. But what they did have was a lot of picks in the middle of the draft. And I thought they did really, really well. Maybe their best value pick was Isaiah Thomas in the 7th round. But I thought their best pick overall was Perion Winfrey at number 108. Winfrey was one of the top 5 best interior defensive linemen for me. He is so quick for an interior defensive lineman. Yeah, he's a little bit lighter, but he's a pass rush specialist for Cleveland now, and they really struggled to create interior penetration, if you will, on that defensive line this past season. Their D tackles just did not perform to the level that they wanted. Malik Jackson, not the player he once was for the Broncos and the Jaguars. And Winfrey maybe fell because of some off-field stuff, but gets to round 4 to get one of the best defensive linemen in the entire draft class in the 4th round. I think it's great, yeah. On the interior, had some boomer bust guys, and Winfrey might be along that same line. But I like the player a lot. He had a great offseason as well, winning Senior Bowl MVP, 2 sacks in that game. He will be able to offer you some pass rush on the inside. Just about developing some consistency in the play as well. Pad level will rise a little bit too much at times, but he showcased the ability to be a really good player. The Dallas Cowboys did what the Dallas Cowboys do, and that's take chances on players with, we'd say, red flags for other teams. That's Damone Clark at the back end of the draft, or in round 5, 176. That's taking guys with some definite off-field issues, and I think the best pick of the draft is Sam Williams, and he falls under one of those categories. Definite off-field concerns, but I really think the player on the football field is really, really good. He has prototypical size for an edge, and he's also crazy explosive, crazy twitchy, and someone that I think will end up being at least a rotational pass rusher for the Cowboys right away, and that's kind of what you need. You have DeMarcus Lawrence, who is your every down, like, base defensive end. You have Micah Parsons, who comes down and plays the edge and gives you a lot of juice as a pass rusher. Sam Williams can kind of be that same type of guy. If you want to come in and bring in a formation with 3 defensive ends and get a lot of pass rush going on, you can do that with Sam Williams. And if you want to run like 4-3 under, Sam Williams is going to slide right in there and be a really effective player. Yeah, he's not the best run defending defensive end in the class, but he is a really high pass rush upside player off the edge, and I think he is a great, great player. I really do. So as a Giants fan, I'm a little bit afraid of what he's going to do to the Giants offensive line in future years, but I think the player's really, really good. A lot of pass rush upside, and he's someone to look out for. Just like the Cleveland Browns, the Broncos do not have a lot of high picks, or did not have a lot of high picks in this draft, but I think they made the most of them. Of course, in the Russell Wilson trade, that was their best draft pick by a mile, Russell Wilson. But I think you could talk about any number of these picks as the best in the draft. I think it comes down to Nick Casa Bonito and Greg Dulcich. And after losing Noah Fant, I think Greg Dulcich is my choice. I like Bonito a lot as well. Really, really bendy off the edge. A lot of juice as a pass rusher too. But Greg Dulcich is an immediate Noah Fant replacement. I like Albert Okwuegbunam, but for me, Greg Dulcich is a better vertical threat, and that's exactly what this pick offers. Ran about 4.7, but when you see him on tape, he moves even faster than that. That's a pretty good time for a tight end that's 6'4", 245 pounds. He can get vertical, he can win down the field, he can run after the catch, and if you want to recreate some of the best offenses we've seen, a lot of them feature a tight end that can get vertical. And when you think about the Broncos offense, with Russell Wilson coming in, and Cortland Sutton, and a couple of good running backs in there already, and Jerry Jeudy, and KJ Hamler, what he offers deep, you're going to have too many guys for a defense to cover, and Greg Dulcich will create mismatches and will create problems for a defense. Again, I love the Nick Bonito pick at the back end of the second round, but Dulcich here in the middle of the third, I think is better value than a lot of picks in this draft. In my opinion, the Detroit Lions continue to draft really, really well. I think they drafted great last year. I love their approach of building up the front first. They got Levi Onwuzurike, they got Penei Sewell, and I think they've continued just drafting well. This time they were a little bit more aggressive. They moved up for Jamison Williams. They took Aiden Hutchinson at 2. And for me, I think the best pick in the draft was moving up for Jamison Williams. Hutchinson's graded 2. That's too easy. Jamison Williams is the best deep threat receiver in this class. Really good route runner, really good hands, and I think good value for the Lions at 12. The fact that he wasn't the first receiver off the board, he wasn't the second, he wasn't the third. He was the 4th receiver off the board and could be the best out of all of them, certainly with the highest upside. It's great value for the Lions here at number 12. They moved up to get him. I think they won that trade in terms of value, and they got a really, really good player. This is a big win for Detroit. People really didn't seem to like the Green Bay Packers draft, wanted them to take a receiver early. We're really upset about Quay Walker, and maybe you'll hear about him in the worst picks made by every team. But I don't know that Quay Walker's going to be on there. But there are a lot of great picks to choose from. I love Devontae Wyatt at 28. But for me, the best pick was Christian Watson just because of his upside and the need for a receiver. You move back up in the second round to get him, and he has as much upside as anybody. He's not just this big deep threat. Yes, he's 6'4", 210 pounds. Big dude, ran 4.36, jumped 38.5 inches. We all know about the athlete in terms of what he can do vertically. But he's also really agile for a big dude, and that is very, very rare to find. Now, the big concern with Christian Watson is we didn't really see a complex advanced route tree at North Dakota State. They run the ball a ton, and when Christian Watson's on the field, they're saying, hey, go get vertical. But we also saw him on end arounds and kick returns sometimes. So I think he's someone that offers you a lot of run after catch potential, and we just didn't really see it at North Dakota State. We saw him torch everybody in the one-on-ones at the Senior Bowl. He was really quick off the line, and he's such a big dude. The big red flag with him, other than small school, haven't seen crazy production, the big red flag is the hands. Drops were a big problem for him, and I think part of that is just not getting enough targets in a run-first offense, and I think as you see him play more and more and more, that part of his game could develop. Not saying it will. Those drop issues might always be there, but he has big hands. He really shouldn't be dropping the ball like he did at over 10% rate at North Dakota State. I think he's pretty good value here in the second round. They moved up to get him, but the upside is amazing. The Houston Texans. It's going to be really tough to choose their best draft pick because I think they did a really good job overall. And that was just letting whoever fell to them fall to them and just taking best player available. And I thought they did that for the most part in this draft. For me, I think their best draft pick was Kenyon Green at 15. That might be unpopular, but I just think he's going to be a really, really good player. I think he's a plug-and-play starting left guard, and what this allows the rest of your team to be able to do is move Titus Howard to tackle, where he's a lot more comfortable, a lot better than at guard. He was horrible at guard. Kenyon Green, plug-and-play. You upgrade right tackle in the process as well. Plug-and-play left guard. Could be a Pro Bowler soon. Great athlete, big dude, mauler in the run game. I like the pick a lot. For the Indianapolis Colts, you know, it's funny. I don't think we had any offensive linemen in this entire video, but now we're going back to back with Bernhard Raimann at number 77. He is a little bit older, a lot a bit older. He's going to be 25 for his rookie season. But at offensive tackle, I really don't mind that as much, especially for a player that's as athletic as he is. One of the craziest athletes we've ever seen at tackle in the draft. I think via relative athletic score, he was in the top 20 from 1987 to 2022. So pretty wide range there. Crazy athlete. I don't mind him being older. Like, yeah, you might see some growing pains there like you saw in Denver with Garrett Bowles. But guess what? Garrett Bowles has played like one of the best tackles in the league at times. And Bernhard Raimann could be on a similar path. Older player, still learning the position, was his foreign exchange student from Austria, was a tight end, now converted tackle. He's only been playing tackle for a few years, but is already pretty technically refined. So as he continues to get more snaps in pass pro, I think he's going to get better and better and better and better. And to get him at number 77, yes, he is older. That's why he fell here, but he's got great upside to be a starting left tackle for the Colts for the foreseeable future. You know, I think Jacksonville Jaguars fans will kill me if I choose Chad Muma as their best draft pick, and I really do think the value at him with 70 was exceptional. Their best pick for me was Devin Lloyd. They got him at 27, and he is really, really good. As instinctive as they come, didn't test quite as well as you expected, but I don't think this is testing all that bad. He's similar to Darius Leonard in a lot of ways, and I think he can rush off the edge as well. So if you want to get creative in that defense and move guys all around and bring in Lloyd onto the field at the same time with Chad Muma and Foye Oluokun, who they brought in from Atlanta in free agency, you can have a couple of linebackers that can cover, and you can have Devin Lloyd go and play off the edge. You have Trayvon Walker in there. You can slide him inside. You can have Josh Allen firing off the edge. And then your defensive line is starting to look pretty crazy. And especially with all the exotic looks that Devin Lloyd, I think, can offer your defense, and Trayvon Walker too, the Jags front seven is going to be a problem for teams because I don't think you're going to know who's coming on the blitz. I don't. Because with Devin Lloyd rotating over down to the edge sometimes, Walker moving over, sliding inside to maybe 3-tech in those pass rush downs, the way we talked about with some other players, and then Josh Allen's your true edge, it's going to be a problem for opposing teams. If you get into 3rd and long against the Jags defense, it's going to be a nightmare scenario to try and pick up those yards. 3rd and 7+, you're done. The Kansas City Chiefs, I mean, this is impossible to choose their best pick because I thought they had value all over the place. Trent McDuffie was an absolute steal at 21. Karlaftis was great value at 30. Sky Moore was great value at 54. Leo Chanel, in my opinion, was a steal at 103. And you had great picks sprinkled out through the entire draft. And this one is really, really tough. So that's why I have to just take the best player. And for me, that's Trent McDuffie. You moved up to get him at 21. I thought he was an easy top 10 player in the class. He has short arms. That's the only thing. But he's a really, really good player. Quick feet. Patience to mirror and match in man coverage. I think he's going to be a plus nickel corner at the very worst. I think he can play safety. I think he can play boundary corner just because his feet are so quick. He can stick with anybody, in my opinion. I just think the player is phenomenal. I think he becomes a starter right away at really any position you want on the defense outside of the front seven. So I think he was just way too good at 21. It's amazing the Patriots traded out of this pick to let the Chiefs get Trent McDuffie. It is amazing that happened. Just like with the Browns and other teams, the Raiders were another team that did not have a lot in the way of top picks. Traded for Devontae Adams. Huge player. Huge addition to that team. And I think it's going to be amazing to see what he can do team backed up with Derek Carr from their Fresno State days. But for me, their best pick was their first pick in Dylan Parham, guard out of Memphis. I think he can compete for a starting job at some point during his rookie year, and I think he has upside as a center. Now, I know that might not end up happening with Andre James at center already, but Dylan Parham is a player I like quite a bit. He was a great right guard at Memphis, and I think can end up being a starter somewhere on the interior of that line. You know, it's funny, I was talking about the Chargers and the Rams back-to-back in my draft grades video, and I forgot which team took which running back, so I ended up unknowingly talking about the Rams and Austin Eckler. A pretty big mistake there, recording at 3 in the morning, but yeah, Austin Eckler, of course, plays on the Bolts and not the Rams. Well aware, but I did misspeak. And they had a pretty good draft. I thought Jamari Salyer was great value at 195, but this isn't just a great value list. It's just their best pick, and I think that was Zion Johnson at 17. Got arguably the best guard in the draft. Depends what you want from me. I think Kenyon Green's the better ground and pound mauler type left guard, and I think Zion Johnson offers you kind of that versatility across an offensive line of being able to start at left guard, center, even where he took a lot of snaps at the Senior Bowl, and right guard like he's going to play for the Chargers. I think he's a plug-and-play player. He's a really, really good athlete, tested pretty well. Got to keep in mind this dude's 6'3", 312 with really solid tape. I think he's a plug-and-play starter. And at number 17, it's not that easy to find those type of guys. So with Rashawn Slater, where they got him last year just outside the top 10, and now Zion Johnson at 17, you're going to build such a great young offensive line on that Chargers team. And it worked with Rashawn Slater. Zion Johnson, not quite the same type of prospect, but I think a good value pick at 17. Here we are with the Rams, who notably do not have Austin Eckler. They have Cam Akers and Sony Michel and some other fun guys. But for me, it was tough to find a pick I really, really loved for this Rams team. I like Jacoby Durant. I like Kyron Williams. I like Logan Bruss. And I don't like Darian Kendrick. I think Quentin Lake's going to play special teams for them. But I think the best pick was Logan Bruss. Tackle / guard. He reminds me a lot of David Andrews now after being selected by the Rams. Tackle guard flexibility, probably will end up playing guard for the Rams. And he's just good depth for right now, which is good value here deep into the third round. And I think it's tough to argue with that. Picked in the 100s and could offer value as a starter at some point on that line. That's pretty good. The Miami Dolphins, because of the Tyreek Hill trade, also did not have many picks. But they did have a couple of picks I really, really liked. 2 out of the 4. And that was Channing Tindall at 102 and Eric Ezekama at 125. And I was a big Eric Ezekama fan, but I think Channing Tindall at 102 was just great value. I think the only reason he ended up slipping this far is because he was not a starter on that Georgia defense. He played every so often, but he's got the size profile you look for at the position. He's got the incredible athletic testing that you would look for in this modern day for the NFL linebacker. And when you run sub 4.5 and you have a vertical jump over 40 inches, I mean, the athlete is exceptional. The explosiveness is there. The athleticism is all the way there. And for a team that needed linebacker, to think you were going to get Channing Tindall here deep into the 3rd round, it's tough to argue with this as their best pick. He has starter potential, probably will start sooner than you think for the Dolphins, and is a great athlete with great upside as a result. The Minnesota Vikings had the first draft for new general manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, coming from the Cleveland Browns, and I thought in general he did a fair to good job drafting. Lewis Cine at 32 is a fine pick, but their best pick for me was Andrew Booth Jr. at number 42. I love the player. I know a lot of people love the player. Great athlete, great ball skills. That's what you're looking for in a corner. Andrew Booth Jr. checks off those boxes. Now, does he check off the injury boxes? Probably not. Has some real injury concerns, but the upside, I think, is fantastic with this player. He could have gone as high as the 1st round, and to get him here at 42, I think it's just a really great pick. The New England Patriots had an interesting draft. A lot of people hated it. I didn't hate it as much as it seems like everybody else did, because, yeah, there are a number of ways to look at it. From a draft philosophy standpoint, maybe they didn't kill it. Reach on Cole Strange, Tyquan Thornton, but I thought they got good players. Strange is going to start right away at right guard. But for me, their best pick was Marcus Jones out of Houston. This is just a classic Patriots player. He will be a starting nickel corner. He's just really small. That's why he's going to be relegated to the nickel. And for me, when I saw Marcus Jones, I knew he was an instant fit for the Patriots. I think it was a really obvious call where he kind of reminds me of the type of player that the Patriots absolutely love. Great returner as well. And I instantly thought Justin Bethel or Matthew Slater in the special teams game. And those players have been so valuable for the Patriots at times that it's tough to really not love this pick, because Marcus Jones will be a good nickel corner in my opinion. Like, he's got that dog in him. You know, you ever heard that? He's got it. He's got it. And he's a great return man. I think he's going to be a great special teamer, but I also think he starts on defense in the nickel, in the slot. The New Orleans Saints are kind of a tough team to do this for. They also did not have a ton of picks. Olave, Penning, Alontae Taylor, DeMarco Jackson, and Jordan Jackson. And they moved up for Olave. I don't think that was incredible value or anything, so it's tough to make that pick. And I'm going to go with the one that everybody seems to hate, and that's Trevor Penning from Northern Iowa. He has notable boomer bust to his game, no question about it. Amazing athlete coming from a really small school, but you didn't move up to get him. He wasn't the 1st or the 2nd or the 3rd tackle off the board. You got him at number 19, you sticked, and you picked. And I thought this is a pick with great upside because he's one of the most athletic tackles we have ever seen. His tape was dominant at Northern Iowa, and there is something to be said for a dominant player at the FCS level that could end up being amazing. Yeah, there are going to be some growing pains, going to be some lumps with Trevor Penning as he transitions to the NFL game. That is, I think, fairly certain to some degree, and we saw that at the Senior Bowl a little bit. But the player, I think, could be really, really good. And to get a starting caliber left tackle to replace your tackle that just left in Teron Armstead at 19, the value's there. We know the Saints can develop offensive linemen. I like the pick for the Saints. I don't know why everyone's hating on it. The upside is there. You're going to a team that knows how to develop offensive linemen. What's to dislike? I saw a clip of him throwing a defensive end into a quarterback at the Senior Bowl in practice. Give me a break. He's got that dog in him. You can coach certain parts out. You can clean things up. Finally, to my favorite team, the New York Giants. And they had a great day one of the NFL draft. And they took Kayvon Thibodeau at 5, took Evan Neal at 7, and there are a couple of different ways to look at this. And for me, I want to say this is Kayvon Thibodeau just because of how much of a difference maker he can be. But in reality, I had Evan Neal as the best player in the draft, and he was available at number 7, and the Giants jumped at that. He has history of starting at right tackle and playing that position at a high level. That probably is their best pick, but I've talked a lot about that already. I'm going Kayvon Thibodeau. He's just a difference maker. He's a game changer on the defense side of the ball. He has immediate upside as Defensive Rookie of the Year potential. It's that type of a guy like Aiden Hutchinson. Like, Thibodeau is a game changer, and he's a great athlete. He's been dominant at times for Oregon, even playing injured last year. To get him at 5 for the consensus #1 guy pretty much the entire year, I think it's pretty good value. And the player is a difference maker and a game changer. And Neal is a really, really good player. It might be the boring best pick that they made just because he was so good and available at 7. But Thibodeau is a game changer, and I'm going to mix it up and go with him here as the best pick for the Giants at number 5 overall. It's tough to pick the Jets' best pick because they had so many great ones. I mean, you can point to every single one of these and say, that's a good pick. I can see what role they're going to play. Oh, that's good value at that spot. That's a great pick for the Jets. And you can point to that for all of them, except for Sauce Gardner or Garrett Wilson, because it's not exceptional value. It's just a good player at a good spot. Their best pick, all in all, was Jermaine Johnson at 26. Apparently, some of the NFL didn't view him quite as highly as I did and some of the media did. And it confuses me as to why. The Jets said he was a top 8 player for them, and that's kind of more of where I see him. He's going to be a little bit older, but has prototypical size, 6'5", 255, 34-inch arms, ran sub 4.6, and his 10-yard split at the combine was in the 1.5s. Think about 1.57. And for example, 1.6 is elite. So his 10-yard split showing that explosiveness, craziness. His tape's pretty good. Production was good, but he only got better as the offseason went on. He was the best player at the Senior Bowl, was dominant in one-on-ones, which proves to me he can be dominant as a pass rusher, or at least he has the potential to do so. So the fact that the Jets moved back up to get a top 10 player on their board at 26, it's exceptional value at a position of need, and at least as a rotational pass rusher right away, Jermaine Johnson's got really, really high potential, and he's a great run defender. This is a starting caliber guy right away, in my opinion. And it's going to be tough to see where they play him because they got John Franklin Myers. They have Carl Lawson. They have Bryce Huff, who was a good rotational edge rusher last year. So I don't know what Jermaine Johnson's going to do, but I know he's going to be pretty damn good at it. The Philadelphia Eagles here had a great draft. Their best draft pick was A.J. Brown. They traded number 18 for him. I mean, that was great, obviously. But their true best pick, I am going to go on upside here, and I'll say it was Nakobe Dean at 83. Dean is a really good player with apparent huge injury concerns, whether it's a shoulder or the torn pec or the knee or the ankle. It's like Nakobe Dean has problems. He has shorter arms, and he's a small player to begin with, 5'11", just under 230 pounds. At linebacker, that's going to be tough. But I think what the Eagles are going to do, just like at Georgia, they're going to do a great job of keeping him clean. You brought in Jordan Davis in front of him. You already have Fletcher Cox for at least the next year. You have Javon Hargrave. You have great edge defenders who are great at the point of attack, like Derek Barnett, who are just solid edge players, and Josh Sweat, who's a little bit more of a pass rusher, in my opinion. Brandon Graham, kind of that same deal. But Nakobe Dean's going to be kept clean, probably, so you're just going to let him run and chase, anticipate, and make plays, just like he did at Georgia. And yeah, there are big injury concerns, but you got him deep into the third round at number 83. I mean, the value is absolutely there. This could be a steal. The Pittsburgh Steelers are up next, and this is another team that drafted really well, in my opinion. Calvin Austin fell because he's really, really small. Could be a gadget player, but I like him as a starting slot at some point. Great pick. DeMarvin Leal at 84, untapped potential. Was seen as a top prospect going into this draft year. Got him at 84. Great pick. My best pick for them is Pickens, though. I thought it was a really good pick, and he's someone with wide receiver 1 potential. Immaturity is certainly an issue for him, as was reported by so many different sources. I'm sure you guys have heard that by now. But the player's great. I mean, great size, great athlete, great route pacing, great deep ball tracking. In my opinion, great hands, despite them being a little bit smaller. I really, really like the player. And I think here at 52, you are not going to find a receiver 1 at this spot like ever in the draft. And Pickens has potential to be a true X, starting outside, #1 receiver, and adding that with Chase Claypool and James Washington and Deontay Johnson. I don't know why I named him last, but I think that adds to a really good receiving core, and Pickens has true wide receiver 1 potential in my opinion. But that's something you have to keep in mind. Like, it's potential. Some of these guys, for one reason or another, whether it's off field, whether it's immaturity, whether it's injury, or whether it's just not living up to expectations, some of these guys will inevitably fall short, unfortunately. And for the 49ers, my favorite pick they made was Drake Jackson, got him at 61. Another guy who was viewed to be as one of the top players, like DeMarvin Leal, in the beginning of this draft year, and then he tried to slim down to 254 from like 270 plus and just kind of lost that play strength, but he was still explosive at 270 plus pounds. So he's going to end up probably adding more weight and playing a little bit better at that added weight would be my guess. I don't see him as a linebacker. I see him as more of a defensive end, and I think he's going to be really good in that role. We've seen him be a dominant force at times, and to get him way into the second round, the upside at least is there, and this can end up being a great pick for him. The Seattle Seahawks are up next, and they had a better draft than I think everybody's saying. I think I could call Kenneth Walker the best pick in the draft for them and back it up, and I really mean that. Maybe the best running back in this draft class. We don't know if Chris Carson's going to play again. We don't know if Rashad Penny's going to be on the team in 2023. Who do you want to throw out there? Like really, DJ Dallas? Is that the guy? Come on, no offense, but Kenneth Walker is going to be RB1 in a year, maybe 2. Abraham Lucas, great value. Tariq Woolen has good upside. Their best pick was Charles Cross, though, at number 9 for me. Starting left tackle, is the most experienced pass protector in the entire draft and is really good in that role. I find him to be a pretty good athlete as well, and I think he has better play strength than a lot would agree with me on. I think he's a really, really good player. I mean, some had him as their number 2 player in the draft, top tackle. So there are a lot of things to like. Seahawks got him at 9. He's a starting left tackle tomorrow. This is good. Tampa Bay Buccaneers did a really, really good job in this draft, in my opinion, getting great player after great player. I can see Logan Hall starting right away. See Luke Gadecki starting right away. I can see Rashad White getting involved really quickly. I can see Cade Otton, same deal, over Cameron Braid at some point. But to me, their best pick was Zion McCollum. I'm a little bit higher on Zion McCollum than it seems the league was, but when you factor in that he is literally the number 1 most athletic corner of all time in terms of height, weight, speed, agility, strength, I mean, how do you disagree with the athlete at least? Ran 4.33. His 3-cone was the fastest by a mile at the combine, and that's how quick and agile you are. Super important for cornerbacks. And you're like, that doesn't show up on tape, clearly, otherwise he wouldn't have been a 5th round pick. But I think it does. I think he's really, really good on tape. He's just not as physical as you'd want, in my opinion, but I think that's something you can coach up. And to get him in the 5th round, I mean, this is a boom potential player. Like, this could be a starter on a lot of teams tomorrow. And I really, really believe that. And he's not going to have to on the Bucs. He's going to be able to continue to develop, and getting him deep into the 5th round, I am perplexed on this one. This is where I totally disagreed with NFL evaluation on how good he is. And I guess that's why they're in the NFL and I'm not. But I think Zion McCollum's going to end up being a pretty good player. So we'll have to see where we are in like 3 or 4 years where we really find that out. For the Tennessee Titans, I think their worst pick was losing A.J. Brown. But at the end of the day, I think they did fairly well in the draft. And I am going to bank on the upside. I think they had a lot of great picks for the Titans. But their best pick to me was Malik Willis. I think he has unbelievable potential. He has a huge arm. He is great at extending plays. I think he's a really, really good person from everything you hear. He's kind of got everything you'd want in terms of an NFL quarterback, except for the experience against top competition. He played behind such a horrible offensive line. Like, this is a guy you're going to have to develop. I totally understand that, but he's not starting right away because you have Ryan Tannehill. The upside is incredible, and to get him at number 86, I mean, the value I think is insane. So this is their best pick because if it works out, you have a starting quarterback that has top tier potential. If it doesn't work out, it was your number 86 pick in the draft. It doesn't really matter that you missed on him. And then the last team, first draft for the Washington Commanders. Of course, obviously, they were a team before this, not an expansion team, so they had picks and a roster in place already. But they are a decent team that was just kind of a few things away. They think by adding Carson Wentz, like that's their guy, that's going to bring them to the promised land. But I think their best pick was a quarterback, and I think it was Sam Howell at 144. Another guy that could end up being a starting quarterback at some point in the league. And to get him at the top of the 5th round, you can't say that for like anybody in the draft. Like, how are you getting a potential starter in the 5th round? It's very, very rare to be able to do that. Howell's got starter potential. I call him Baby Baker because I think he's similar to Baker Mayfield in a lot of ways. And Baker, that's like a negative connotation now, but that's still a player with some upside. And Sam Howell is more mobile than Baker with that same arm, and he reads the field well. I think he could be a starter sooner rather than later. And if things don't go well for Carson Wentz, I think Howell can step in and be the guy. So getting him in the 5th round, I mean, this was their best pick, I think, by a lot. But that's going to do it for every team's best pick in the 2022 NFL Draft. Stay tuned for the worst pick as I take late round guys that I don't expect to play very much, so I look smart in a couple years. Except for when a late round guy comes out of nowhere like Eli Mitchell and gets 1,000 carries as a rookie. Take it easy. See you in the next one. See me high step to the end zone. My life like a game Nintendo. Playing with the best, let them know. Get off the track, the train's coming through. Yeah. Promise you get in my way, then you best believe I'ma just run over you. Yeah. I'ma turn taking it back to the house. Defensive joke, I'm laughing so loud. Speedbird's good.